Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rise About Justice Movement, the podcast. My name is Zachary Mallory, and I am the host and the founder of the Rise About Justice Movement, the Rise About Justice Movement, the podcast. All right. So, another addition to our candidate series, and this is a candidate, but more or less somebody that I have actually been following at various times on social media. Back in my Twitter/X days, I used to follow this candidate very religiously during his first campaign. William Compton is running in Kentucky Congressional District 2. William, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I didn't know that you followed me back in the Twitter days.
Back in those good old Twitter days before the Elon Musk, you know,
Oh man.
all that bullshit that took on, I used to follow a lot of candidates. And you were one of the candidates that I came across. And this is like a full circle moment. And I've actually talked about you and your campaign to several other people that I talked to offline. And your campaign has inspired me, and because it's the true definition of what grassroots really looks like. And I know this time around you're doing a phenomenal job with fundraising, which obviously it's not nearly what it should be, but being grassroots, it is incredibly more difficult because you're not backed by PACs, you're not backed by APAC, you're not backed by a corporation. You reject that money, and that's the true grassroots, which we'll dive into here in just a little bit. But I would love to just start out with, like a backstory, who you are, what's your story, and why you're running, because you've ran before. So I would love for you to kind of like run us through those previous campaigns too, and just this is that ramble part.
Yeah, so I 32 years old. I live in Warren County, Kentucky. If you don't know where Warren County is, oh, sorry, my dog is trying to chew my cord. No, bad. No. Um, it is about an hour north of Nashville, Kentucky, or Nashville, Tennessee. And so we're that close to Nashville. Visit Nashville quite often my whole entire life, but grew up here, grew up on actually the Warren County, Edmonson County line. And when I mean rural, I tell everyone I literally could step outside of my front porch and I could hear banjos in Edmonson County. If you know Edmonson County, you know I'm not even kidding. But grew up there on a couple acres of farmland, went to school, graduated from one of our local high schools, went to Western Kentucky University, which is in Warren County, home of the infamous Hilltopper, that no one can figure out what he is. It's just a big red blob, but he's amazing. One of the best mascots in college, uh, and in the collegiate universe, in my opinion. Went there, got my degree in music education, and went back to the same school I graduated from and started teaching string orchestra. I actually never thought I would get into politics. It never really crossed my mind when I was going through college. I remember the 2016 primary election. And in that election, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton both came to Bowling Green, Kentucky, which was a big deal. It was all over our news here. And I was like, man, uh, presidential candidates want to come to Bowling Green. That's insane to me. Ended up going to both rallies. Ended up voting for Sanders in that primary, and we know Hillary Clinton won the primary. Went into the fall, first year teaching, and then we know what happened in that election where Trump won. So I started paying a little bit of attention. Bernie Sanders actually got me interested. He had the first rally here, and so that really kind of sparked my interest. Uh, Kept my head down, taught my students, built my program. And when I was about a year away from getting tenure here in Kentucky, I said, I need my own house. Got my house in a small city called Plum Springs. A lot of people like to say Palm Springs, and we're not Florida. We're not Palm Springs, Florida. Plum like the color. Uh, but moved out there and COVID hit. So I was stuck in this house by myself. I didn't have any pets at the time. I wasn't in any relationship. So I was here by myself. And so I started doing a little bit of research and found out, as my dog is, I say I had no animals, and then he pushes up against me. Uh, I found out that we had a city commission and a mayor that I didn't realize we had. Okay, buddy, I'm gonna need you to move, please. I'm so sorry. Um, and so found out we had a mayor and a city commission, and I reached out to our mayor at that time and asked him when their next meeting was, what they were talking about, and I was met with a very hateful response from him saying that I should look up their meeting agenda online. The meeting is always on the second Thursday of the month at this time. Next meeting is this date. I go up there, find out that they had canceled the meeting after I sat in the parking lot for 2 hours, and they didn't tell anybody, and they said COVID was the reason. Go home, email him, and he said his exact words were, "Are you stupid? We canceled the meeting. Why didn't you realize that?" Which made me angry. So I decided I wanted to jump into politics to fix that. Uh, Come to find out, there was a chance for me to be a write-in candidate for that city commission. I jumped in that seat and got on that city commission where I, through my first term, found out that our mayor, who spoke to me like that, he was stealing taxpayer funds. $36,000 worth of taxpayer funds, over 36,000. He was forging bank statements. He and was trying to hide everything through COVID was going on, so we weren't doing everything correctly, which I was not accepting that as an answer. Elected a new mayor and uncovered all of this with the former mayor or with the new mayor, and we held our former mayor accountable. He was federally indicted and paid every single cent that he took back from the city back to the city. And so that kind of led me to go, well, if it's happening here and it was $36,000, what's going on higher up? And so started paying attention and started noticing that my representative Brett Guthrie noticed his voting record, noticed kind of where he stands on everything. At that time, he was standing on the side of everything that Mitch McConnell would vote for, he would vote for, kind of that side. Now he's moved more towards anything Trump says, I support, which is way worse on a lot of things. But I started looking at the Democratic candidates who were running against him, and it was happened to be one person who was running against him continuously. Never heard of him before. By the time I looked, it was the 2022 election cycle. This gentleman, he had ran against him. This would be his third time now, and again, hadn't heard about him. And I said, well, if I haven't heard about him and he's ran it twice already, he's not doing a very good job. So let's change that. And I was always told if you want to make a change, you have to do it. You can't wait for someone else to do it. So I jumped in, had no idea what I was getting into that first election cycle. It was just kind of, okay, going where I can, hitting a lot of roadblocks from a lot of the established county parties at the time because this newcomer's coming in. We have no idea who he is. And they were a little wary of me. Almost won the primary. I was so close in that primary. And then I was like, well, I can't give up. So I started building more relationships across the district, ran in 2024 against the same gentleman, uh, was unsuccessful in that race. And that race was unsuccessful because of low voter turnout. We actually had one of the lowest voter turnouts in that primary in 2024 than we've had in over at least a decade or more. And so third time's a charm. I'm running for this district now and getting a lot more traction. Fundraising, like you mentioned earlier, we've got a lot more fundraising behind us, and we are having a lot more support across the entire district. And before I forget, between the 2024 election and this election, I did also take over as the state Democratic Rural Council chair for Kentucky as well, which The same guy that I was running against in the primary, he was the chair of that council, and we ended up taking that seat from him. So, and we've been working across the state, organizing in our rural areas as well. So, we've been doing a lot.
And you're doing a phenomenal job. And this is what I mean whenever
You
I say that candidates need to be doing this across the freaking country. So, anybody out there, if you are listening, if you're a Congress member, if you're a state representative, if you're a city council member, if your mayor is doing the stuff that William mentioned about, you need a new elected official. You need a new representative because William is bringing the energy that I don't see very often. And yes, this is turning into a hype session because that's exactly what this is.
I
Because we
love
need
it.
you in Congress. We need your voice. We need people who understand the poor, who understand the disabled, who understand the working class. We don't need the tech bros. We don't need Palantir. We don't need Donald Trump. We don't need Elon Musk. We definitely do not need Stephen Miller. Just
Yep.
saying, Stephen Miller is the mastermind and literally the puppeteer of everybody in this administration right now. We are
Yep.
seeing it in our streets. We're seeing it in our communities. ICE does not belong here, which brings me to my next talking point.
All right.
So ICE and DHS is a very high conversation right now. It's a very high concern. What are you hearing whenever you go out, you talk to people, you speak at events, if you're doing phone banking, what are those conversations like for you? And what are you hearing as some of those top concerns from the people in Kentucky's second congressional district?
Yeah. So, a lot of people here, the top 2 concerns, and they kind of flip back and forth, happen to be healthcare prices, and affording just to live in general. So affordability. Those 2 have been the top 2 issues. Um, with healthcare, we saw last year the one big, like to call it the one big bullshit bill that was
Yes,
passed through Congress,
yes.
that the Medicaid cuts, which my Republican opponent, my representative, actually is the reason for these Medicaid cuts, was put
Yep.
in that bill. And I was talking to someone, I cannot remember what state she was from, in an interview about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I mentioned Kentucky, because of this budget bill, our entire state, we have 35 rural hospitals that once this extra money that they put in to put a Band-Aid over it to make it seem like it's not as bad as it is, once that goes away, we're gonna have 35 rural hospitals in our state that are going to cut vital services or completely close down. 4 of them
Mm,
are in my district alone, and they're all concentrated in one area pretty much. And so, and we're even seeing services being cut already, even with this Band-Aid that they've put on it. We saw in one of my counties a dialysis clinic closing down. All of these specialty clinics are closing. And it doesn't just put a strain on the hospitals that were on that list that are closing, it puts a strain on other hospitals that aren't closing. For example, Louisville and Bowling Green are the 2 biggest cities that go up I-65 here in Kentucky. Those hospitals, the people in between who are losing access when their hospital closes, will be going to those 2 hospitals. Those 2 hospitals and those 2 areas, they're gonna have less staff because they're gonna have to make cuts, and they're gonna have more patients. It's gonna be a disaster. And so our rural communities and all across our state and nation were devastated. And so a lot of people are worried about it. We're gonna see areas where you're gonna, if you need to go to the hospital in an emergency situation, that could be a 30, 40, or longer minute drive, when there are places that's maybe 10 minutes if you're nearby, or if traffic's not bad. And that could mean life or death for people. That could mean a baby being born on the side of the road. That could mean, uh, your my grandmother, she is prone to strokes, and she actually had a mini stroke not too long ago. That could mean that she wouldn't have been able to get to the hospital in time, and could not be around. It's devastating to these communities. And so that's a big issue.
mhm.
My district, a majority of my district is an older population, and so healthcare is always on their mind because they're seeing the growing need for it and seeing
Mhm.
these cuts. It scares the people all across the district. And then affordability. This is hitting everybody, Democrats, Republicans, Independents. Uh, Gas prices. 2 days ago, it started going down here, but and it jumped back up. It was at about I want to say 3.70 was what it dipped down to, and then it jumped back up to 4.19 a gallon here in my area. All because of this stupid war that our president is throwing us in and continually causing harm in. We're seeing grocery store prices still skyrocketing, and we're seeing our energy prices, which my Republican opponent has a direct hand in, being the Energy and Commerce Chair.
Mhm.
Energy prices skyrocketing. In the winter, yes, we had a cold winter, but we're seeing people's energy bills double, triple, even some areas quadruple. And that's not
Mhm.
right. You shouldn't have to pay quadruple what you normally pay just to not freeze to death.
It's literally highway robbery,
It
like
it really
literally
is,
to the
yes.
freaking T.
And I
And
actually went through my energy bill. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, you're good. Go ahead.
But I
Yes.
went through my energy bill, and the energy prices, the charges, they never notified me or
Mhm.
my husband that they were increasing the, uh
Mhm.
the charges that they had, the Tennessee Valley Authority charges. We never received a notification, whether on our app, whether in paper, never received it. Why is the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, why is he not investigating that? That's ridiculous.
Mhm.
The consumer should know, "Hey, your prices are going up," before it happens. So it's things like that that people are tired of. Nothing being done, prices getting higher, and those are things that are people are seeing and they're struggling with. And those are those top 2 issues. And I'll actually tell you a little bit of a funny story. Uh, about 4 or 5 months ago now, my husband and I, we were at the grocery store, and someone I used to work at McDonald's with, we ran into her and we were talking, very much a Trump supporter. She pretty much all but bowed at his feet every time he ran.
Mhm.
And we started talking about grocery store prices, and she was talking about that she had this healthcare issue and how much it cost, and then she looked at me and she said, "You know what? If Donald Trump was right here, I'd punch him in his face because he doesn't have to deal with these prices. But yet I have to, but he's never had to deal with this." And I'm sitting
Mhm.
there thinking, it took you this long to figure it out, but at least you got there. I appreciate that you got there.
And this is what we call meeting people like where they're at and then
Mhm.
seeing like what they need. We
Yes.
saw this with the Zohran Mamdani campaign, and I've talked about him numerous times on this podcast because he's an absolute freaking badass. Now, thinking about these winning issues, like you said, healthcare. Whenever you talk about, money in politics, you talk about the
Yep.
AI regulation, which we're going to dive into here in just a little bit, but also like LGBTQ rights.
Mhm.
And Kentucky's no stranger whenever it comes to LGBTQ rights.
I know.
And there's different pockets of like progressive areas across Kentucky. And I know a lot about Kentucky, and unfortunately, it's not for a good reason because whenever I think of Kentucky, every time I think of Kentucky, every time I hear about Kentucky, I think about Breonna Taylor. I
Yeah.
cannot get the story out of my head, William. This
Yeah.
story fucks me up every single time I think about it. It pisses me off. It's upsetting knowing that they released the charges against the officers who
Yep.
literally are the ones that signed this death warrant. And I'm not even gonna call it what it actually is. It literally is. They faked this death warrant
Yep.
and it literally cost Breonna Taylor her life.
Yep.
Sleeping in her own bed. Ugh. Okay, I got to calm myself down. We're going to dive into
It's
this here in just a little bit, but it is the systems These are the systems that were not set up for people like you and me. They were only set up to function to benefit the top 1%. If you were anything outside of like that, that white picket fence, or these systems are not for you.
Yep.
I don't know how much clearer that can get before people start realizing police are not going to save us. The mainstream and corporate media are not going to save us. And
Exactly.
this administration is not going to save us. If anything, the next administration, luckily, everything that's happened is a policy. Like there's still a lot of like reversals, but there is still very deep things that we're not going to be able to fully come back from, depending on
Yep.
who the next administration is. We don't need another centrist president. We don't
Nope. Not
need
at all.
another neoliberal president. We need a true, bold progressive that is going to go in and flip it. Jesus would be flipping tables right now.
Yep.
Like if we're going to
Well,
quote the Bible, which I don't get into.
well, let's be honest. If Jesus was around right now, they'd be trying to deport him.
I mean,
Let's be
yes,
honest right there.
exactly, because Jesus wasn't what?
He was not white at all.
Bingo, bingo. You see, you know what? We're gonna be best friends, but it's just, I keep saying on this show that this is just common sense. This is bringing back that common sense because clearly common sense is not in the room with us, other than you and me and those of us that think exactly like us that are involved in this process of saving democracy. We want to bring the integrity to politics. So, thinking about money in politics, you know, I'm interviewing candidates all across the country. One thing that I see majority of candidates talking about is the money in politics.
Hmm.
Because if you were older than 2010, you were older than Citizens United versus
Yep.
FEC. Just
Yep.
like DHS, if you were older than 2003, that's when DHS was created out of quote unquote alleged fear, because it was created, the Muslim fear, and
Yep.
that's what fueled like all of this hate, right? One of my favorite representatives is Ilhan Omar. I met her before she became
Oh
a
man,
congresswoman. I have a
I'm
picture
jealous.
with her. I sat in her office while she was eating lunch in the Minnesota State Capitol. And coincidentally, I was talking about conversion therapy. But it was an LGBTQ equality day. I got to meet her before she ran for Congress the very first time. And Ilhan Omar is one of my favorite representatives, and I'm not afraid to say it. The attacks on the Somali community right now, specifically in Minnesota, are astronomically insane
They're
and
disgusting.
beyond disgusting, and it's rooted in that alleged fear, which is what created ICE and DHS.
Mhm.
Now, thinking about Citizens United and thinking about getting money out of politics, what are your thoughts as far as the steps that we can take to get money out of politics? Obviously, right now we have the APAC influence,
Yep.
we have Palantir, we have all of these other, and it's not just APAC, there's also like J Street and several others too. But thinking about money in politics, what are some of the steps that we can take to get money out of politics and bring back the true progressive and the true grassroots?
Well, you hit the nail on the head on the first thing is ending Citizens United. And that's something that I have been very vocal about for quite a while. I'm actually in an organization called Take Back Congress, and that's one of our pillars that we are fighting for. We're going to go up to Washington and be a huge voting bloc for. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, we have in Kentucky with this organization, we have 5 of the 6 congressional districts and a US Senate candidate who's in this group who believes in this as
Yes.
well. So, we need to make sure we get rid of Citizens United, get money out of politics, the big dark money out of politics. We need to make sure that, we end honestly, I just wanna end political lobbying. I'm so sick and tired of, lobbyists being able to come in and telling our politicians how to vote, and we'll give you money. We had a former representative, I'm not gonna say his name, because I don't wanna get
Mm-hmm.
stoned to death in part of my district, but a former, representative who was asked before the budget bill was or when the budget bill was passed, and it started to come out that representatives didn't read the bill before they passed it. Was asked, when you were in Congress, why did you read the bills? Why did they not read the bill fully? And their response was, well, the lobbyist gives us a summary and we vote on the bill after that, which made me so mad. The fact that he said lobbyists summarized the bill for the legislators so they didn't have to do the work and they gave them money to vote this way because that was the summary they gave them. We need to get rid of those lobbyists. Ridiculous. If you're hired to pass legislation, you need to read that legislation. You need to know exactly what it's going to do to your community and not
Mhm.
rely on big money to tell you what it's going to do, because that's why we're in this mess. Uh, so making
Mhm.
sure we end that, making sure we put a moratorium on retired politicians lobbying. We're seeing that all across the nation to where they get rich, they fill their pockets after they leave Congress. And I'm willing to bet there's quite a few that are retiring that's what they're gonna do when they retire after this session. And we need
Oh,
to put a stop to
absolutely.
that. Um, on top of that, and this is an idea that, I saw during the mayoral race in New York, I would love to see a cap on federal seats on how much you can raise. Because I know that Mom Donnie, he raised enough to where he had to tell people, "Stop donating." We
Yes.
we need to see a cap on that. There's no reason why we see some of these people on the federal level with tens of millions of dollars in their bank accounts when all of that money could go back into a community to help make sure they have food, make sure they have clean water, make sure they have roads that you can drive on. That's ridiculous. And that should never happen. So I think we need to put a cap on how much money that candidates can actually raise and have in their bank accounts in an election cycle. It We don't need tens of millions of dollars for that. That's ridiculous. So money needs to get out of politics. The reason someone should want to run for these offices is to represent the people in their district, not represent how much money the people in their district can give them.
Hmm. Well, yeah, and how much money they get in general from
Yes.
PACs
Yep.
and literally everything else in between, because you hit it right on the head. Something that doesn't happen very often on this show. This is, I believe, the third instance of this happening, but there's actually a live update of something that I've been watching, and I'm going to run you through
Uh-oh.
this really quick.
Okay.
So, OxyContin maker Purdue Pharma set to dissolve after judge approves its criminal sentence. Essentially, this is from the Associated Press. This just came down. OxyContin maker Purdue Pharma is set to be dissolved and replaced by a company focused on the public good by the week's end as a massive legal settlement resolving thousands of lawsuits takes effect. A federal judge on Tuesday delivered a criminal sentence to the company to resolve a U.S. Department of Justice probe, a last necessary step to clear the way for the settlement. U.S. District Judge Madeline Cox Arleo made her decision after listening to hours of impact statements from people who lost loved ones or struggled with addiction themselves and requested she reject the negotiated sentence. While she didn't go that far, she said she empathized with the people who bore the brunt of an epidemic linked to more than 900,000 deaths in the United States since 1999. Here's the exact quote of what she said. She said it was a purposeful, intentional, and sophisticated crime scheme. Whenever we talk about getting money out of politics, it also incorporates big pharmaceuticals like
Yep.
Purdue Pharma.
Yep.
This is one that has, oh, and I say this as a person that's in long term recovery. I've been sober for 10 years now. And thinking about what I went through with my own addiction, I'm glad to see this. I'm glad to see them
Yep.
start taking this serious because we continue to have the war on drugs. We continue it. It came from Ronald Reagan. It was even before him, but he really pushed it. And ever since
Yep.
then, it's gotten incredibly worse. And we treat people who go through drug addiction, which some of them are also veterans. I want to
Yep.
add that in there.
Yep.
But
Exactly.
I just wanted to add that in there. Not very often on the show do we get like literal live updates right off the bat. But let's shift our conversation. Let's think
Mhm.
about the AI regulation because what is
Okay.
contributing to the cost across the country is the AI data centers that are being built up. Now, they build these multi-billion-dollar centers, but they're not doing it in the very hefty and populated areas. They're doing it disproportionately in
Mhm.
communities that have been riddled with either violence or poverty, and that has predominantly black and Latino, black and brown community members. They're not doing it in these white suburban areas. They're doing this intentionally. It's all by design. And some of those concerns around that is the rise of electric bills, the
Yep.
rise of the water bill, which is why it's incredibly and crucial to also elect progressive people to your local water board so it does not become
Yep.
privatized, which is a right-wing talking point, is privatizing public utilities so they can drive the cost up and put people even more into poverty.
Yep. Yep.
But William, you're bringing out the side of me that
Bring it. Yes.
numerous times I've been told that I need to run for office. I don't have the patience nor the energy to deal with the ignorance. And I'm not talking about of the constituents. I'm talking about of other people that I'm running against because I will destroy somebody on a stage. I can imagine myself being in the middle of a debate and be like, "Well, that was fucking stupid." Um, but thinking, well,
So
maybe
sometimes
people should do
we need
that
that. We need that. Yeah. In some cases we do.
because I was not allowed to compete in debate in high school. I was not allowed to do it because I've been known to destroy people and just conversations. But it's just common sense. But
Yep.
thinking about AI regulation in, we also see it on the Twitter X platform.
Mhm.
Somebody can use the grok and they can say, "Hey, undress this person," and it
Yep.
creates these AI images. Supposedly Elon Musk changed that to where, oh, it's only if you pay for this whole subscription and all this stuff. But we know how Elon Musk is. He's a fucking tech bro and oligarch, and he's a fucking
Yep.
racist fascist. Um, that disowned his
Bigot.
trans child, by
Bigot.
the way.
Yep.
But anyway, think about the AI regulation. What are some of the concerns that you're hearing across the state of Kentucky, but also that you're seeing in the country, but
Mhm.
more specifically in your district with concerns about these data centers?
Yes. So, uh, it's funny you brought that up because in my local city commissioner meeting, this was actually brought up here in my small rural city. So they're going to rural areas too, where they
Mm-hmm.
don't think a lot of people are at. Um, and a lot of people across my district and across my state that I've spoken with, they don't want these here. They know how bad it is on the environment. They know how bad it is on pollution, whether it's noise pollution, again, environmental pollution. And you hit the nail on the head, the rising energy prices. Uh, the amount of energy that they would use could take away from a system. And let's say we have another winter where we're get a what was that called? A polar blast or vortex
Mm-hmm. Or
blast, and we
vortex.
go, into negative 10, 15, 20 degrees. The data center's pulling all of our energy, and then we start seeing what happened in Texas with their blackouts
Oh,
here because
wait.
our
You
infrastructure won't happen.
hold on. You mean we can't be like Ted Cruz and flee to
Oh,
Cancun and let your constituents
oh,
fucking die in the freezing weather?
right. And so
Sorry, I
that's
had
a
to add
real
that in there.
issue. And then I saw it, Franklin, Kentucky is where a
Mm-hmm.
big one was debated on. Someone brought up a good point. Housing prices. We're
Mm-hmm.
seeing housing prices go up. Well, if you have a data center within a mile of your house, that's going to drop your property values.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, what about this house that I have equity in? You're going to lower that property value on that. And so people don't want it here. And in fact, like I said in our last city commissioner meeting, our planning and zoning, which is another organization in local areas that everybody needs to pay attention to. I tell everybody in Warren County that is the most corrupt organization we have in our county because the people who are appointed to it from our county and our city are people who have invested interests in construction companies. And so they're going to allow these constructions to come through because they're going to make money off of them. And so we need people watching them as well. But that's a whole nother issue. Um, but they came in with amendments talking about planning and zoning ordinances regarding data centers. And I asked them, what are your regulations on regarding environmental protections? Well, our fire chiefs across the county are gonna say yes or no to that. It's like, that's not important enough. Like, you need regulations, hard things that you can say, well, it's going to do X, Y, and Z to the environment. It can't be here. And we've had 5 inquiries in Warren County already for data centers. So we gotta put those protections in place. We gotta make sure that we protect the people in our counties, even if they're in rural areas, even if they're in these cities that have a low socioeconomic status. We need to protect them from this. So a lot of people don't want it, and rightfully so with the current iteration of it. And I want to make
Mhm.
sure people listening do know, pay attention to who voted for that budget bill we mentioned earlier, who voted for that first iteration of it, because it was found out that in that first iteration, they gave for a decade, 10 years, unchecked power for data centers. They could not be regulated by state and local governments for 10 years. That's ridiculous. That's dangerous. And the fact that they didn't even know that was in that bill is an issue. And again, my opponent, Brett Guthrie, voted for it. And so I believe AI is a powerful tool that can be useful, but we have to regulate it and we have to be smart about it and not destroy our environment and our communities while doing it.
What are your thoughts on AI policing? Whenever I read this, my mind began to race because I was like, okay, we already have an issue with disproportionate violence from police officers against black and brown and disabled. And I say disabled because we saw what happened in, I believe, Pocatello. I think I'm going to pronounce this correctly, in Pocatello, Idaho, with a young man that had cerebral palsy. He was nonverbal, and they shot and killed him in his front yard. Victor Perez is what his name is. If anybody wants to go to Google and look at that horrific story, the district attorney of that area decided not to press charges because they deemed that Victor was posing a threat. But my question is, how can somebody who is nonverbal, which means they literally cannot speak because a
Yeah,
disability blocks them from speaking, how does that pose a threat to somebody with a badge and a firearm? It doesn't make
it
sense.
doesn't. Yeah,
It
exactly.
don't make sense. This is why I said the systems were not built for people like you and me. It was not built for our black and brown community members. But what are your thoughts on AI policing? This is insanity to me. And like you said, AI doesn't have to be a disastrous thing. If it was actually used
Yeah.
for what we actually could use it for with the regulatory,
Hmm.
aspect to it. Because right now it's just so out of whack that
Yeah.
it's being used to literally terrorize. We see the White House using it, we see
Yep.
DHS using it. But what are your thoughts on AI policing and do you know anything about it? Because it's wild.
I will be honest, I that has not come up, at least
Whew.
in my area at the moment. Thankfully, I will tell you, first reaction, I don't like it. It seems like a massive invasion of privacy.
Mhm.
It seems like, again, it could be used to hurt our minority communities, to
Mhm.
hurt our lower income communities more than any others. I'm not, just again, gut reaction, I'm not for it.
So
I don't see it helping.
based on the NAACP website, okay, they did an issue brief about
Mhm.
artificial intelligence and predictive policing. And essentially, what it says is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People calls on state legislators to evaluate and regulate the use of predictive policing and artificial intelligence (AI) within law enforcement agencies. While these tools aim to tailor law enforcement use of assets for efficiency and objectivity, there is mounting evidence and growing concern that they can increase racial biases. This can result in many disparate outcomes, including disproportionate surveillance in policing of Black communities, which you just mentioned about surveillance.
Yeah.
Um, we also see, and along the lines of this, we also see the flock cameras popping
Yep.
up. I don't
Yep.
know if
Well, now
Kentucky
we do have those popping up across our districts,
isn't that
in our counties.
insane?
It's crazy to me. Uh, how much more Orwellian can we get with these? I just think of Animal Farm, where Big Brother's always watching, or that might have been 1984. I get my literature mixed up sometimes,
It sounds
but
like that.
Big Brother always watching, always checking in,
Mm-hmm.
and that's terrifying.
It
It's
is.
terrifying.
It is
We don't,
deeply terrifying. And
and it's all under the guise of, well, we
control.
just want to make sure everyone's safe, but really, it's not.
Because who is safe? Who is safe under AI control? And we also see, I think I read something about AI. The Pentagon wants to start using like AI for wars, which, excuse me,
Mhm.
this is something that is deeply alarming, first of all. And this
Yeah.
is directly from Palantir. And or I think they said they can't use Palantir or something like that. But it was like this whole like conversation going back and forth about it. But it comes down to the fact that we need AI regulation. It needs to have the buffers put up on it. Like whenever you go to a bowling alley and you really suck
Yes.
at bowling, and it
Yeah.
has those,
That's
it
me.
has
I
like
really suck
those.
at it.
Me too. I damn near broke my wrist last time I went bowling,
Oh, no.
but I can't be doing that anymore. We need those buffers put up around AI,
Yep.
and it needs to look exactly like that. It's like, okay, you're gonna stay, whenever you have those buffers up at the bowling alley, and you have those things go up, and the ball starts going down. We need that with AI. It's like,
Yep.
okay, we're going to stay focused on what you're actually supposed to be used for, and not all this
Yep.
other bullshit. And I know Donald Trump is trying to stop states from regulating AI, not
It's
realizing what that's
ridiculous.
actually doing. Midterms are right around the corner.
Yep.
They're not paying attention. I mean, it's good for us because we can get some
Yeah.
true progressive in there, but it doesn't stop with just taking back the House and potentially the Senate. It goes beyond that. The Democrats need to get their shit together because the
Yep.
current
I
leadership
agree.
is not meeting the
It's
moment.
awful. It's awful.
Hakeem
And
Jeffries is not meeting the moment. Chuck
yep.
Schumer is not meeting the moment.
And I'll tell you, when I win this seat and we go into the majority, Hakeem Jeffries is not getting my vote for majority leader at all.
Thank you. Thank you
He
for that.
he he has shown a lack of leadership at a time where he could be so effective, not just for the Democratic Party, but for the entire country. And it's been disappointing to watch.
Did you know that he has a really good progressive challenger?
I do. He's actually in a lot of groups I'm in. Vance
Yes.
Bostic.
Yes. Incredible human being.
Yes.
And brings
I
this
support Vance.
energy
Yeah.
and this fight. Once Vance wins that seat,
Hmm.
that needs to be the next Speaker of the House, and I'm all in for it. Fuck it, I will run for office here
I
in Kansas just to vote for Vance to be Speaker.
well, I'll actually say this. We had a conversation about this. There's a group again that I'm also a part of that's called the Courage Candidates that
Yes, yes.
impeaching president and getting rid of this administration and speaking out about it all across the country. And we talked about Hakeem Jeffries and who would be a good replacement for that. And this was before the Texas Senate primary happened. And I said, you know what? The Speaker of the House doesn't have to be a sitting member of Congress. So whoever doesn't win that Texas primary, why don't we make the other person, the one who doesn't win, make them the Speaker of the House? Speaker Jasmine Crockett has a great name to it, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm,
And I know that
mm-hmm,
she would get things done.
mm-hmm. Hmm. Because she has gotten things done, and
Exactly.
I'm very upset that she's going to be out of Congress. I really am. Um, I have a
Think
lot of thoughts.
gerrymandering.
Yes, I have a lot of thoughts around Texas. I have a lot of thoughts about elections in general, but I just have two more like
Same.
talking points that I wanted to talk
Hmm.
to you about.
Okay.
DHS and ICE.
Yep.
So, what has ICE looked like in your area? I know they're not necessarily like in like all areas. I mean, they're hitting Minneapolis really extremely hard. We saw with Renee Nicole Good, we saw it with Alex Preddy out in California with Keith Porter Jr., which oftentimes is left out of the conversation. I need
Yep.
all those people who were outraged about Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy. I need you to have that same energy every time a black or brown person is
Yep.
killed by police or by DHS or by ICE
Yep.
or Border Patrol, whatever. I need y'all to have that exact same energy. Like, yes,
Yep.
Alex Pretty, Renee Nicole Good, their lives mattered as well, but all lives will not matter until the black and brown lives matter. Period. End of
Exactly.
story. That's a
Exactly.
mic drop moment. But
Exactly.
thinking about ICE in your area and across Kentucky, what have you seen and what are some of those concerns that you were hearing about from your neighbors?
Oh, it's been awful here. We have an ICE facility in Bowling Green. We
Mhm.
have in Grayson County, Kentucky, which is in the center of my district. The sheriff's office, they have a part of their uh, s- the inmates facilities where they are storing ICE people taken by ICE. So my brain is lost for words right now. I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me.
Mhm.
If I sneeze, I apologize. Excuse me. Sorry. Um, but they have been storing these people in Grayson County in gyms. Head to foot is how they're sleeping in these gyms. Jam packed like sardines. We're seeing people in these facilities in Grayson County that go in and within a couple months are pregnant. They didn't go in pregnant. They got pregnant in these ICE facilities. We're seeing them ignore the things that women need to survive the time of the month that they have to go through. Some of them are being denied those products to deal with that. It's just horrible conditions that is very reminiscent of concentration camps that we're seeing. Very reminiscent of that. And so it's here in Kentucky. Our ICE facility in Bowling Green has been all around this county and the city, taking up innocent people, snatching them from gas stations. We had a young student that I was out protesting in the summer, right after school let out last year, graduated from one of our high schools. He was here legally. He was taken by ICE and shipped to three different facilities before someone even found out where he was. And he was here legally. And it took them months to get him back to Bowling Green. Months. And he should have never went through that. So, we're seeing the activity here. It's nowhere near what it is up in Minneapolis. But I know that if that was to come down here, this community showed up and continues to show up for those affected by ICE. I know that we would have the same response as the community up in Minneapolis. We would stand up and fight back because this is wrong. This goes against due process that's promised in the Constitution for everybody. It doesn't say you have to be a legal citizen
Mhm.
to have due process.
Mhm.
It goes against that. And so standing up and fighting back for what's right. I know my community will. We're seeing it still. And I know this wasn't part of the question, but making sure we get rid of ICE, abolish it completely. It needs to go away 100%. Like you said at the start, I'm older than ICE is, and we survived without it. We can survive without it again. It's
And
no
I
longer.
I even feel. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I
Go ahead.
was gonna say it's not serving a purpose to protect our communities. It's
No,
serving a purpose to terrorize and to murder our communities. It needs
facts.
to go away.
Facts, absolute facts. And even like saying abolish feels like a moderate stance now. It does.
Exactly.
Like we were all saying, yeah, defund ICE and then abolish, but it even feels like that's not enough. It feels like that moderate stance because I don't feel that that goes far enough. We need to prosecute the fuck out of every single one of these mass goons that are running across these streets. The,
I agree. Yep.
abolishing doesn't do a goddamn thing, and it needs to go way further than that. Obviously, that's a fantastic first step, right?
Yeah.
And like even like defunding it, like I'm actually glad that the Dems have actually held up as long as they did, but it does appear that they are starting to kind of like backtrack a little bit.
Yep.
And
Yep.
this is what happens because whenever they say, oh, we need this and we need that, they do it just to essentially shut us up. That's what
Yeah.
they do it for. And whenever Hakeem Jeffrey is going back, he says that impeachment of Donald Trump is not a top priority whenever Democrats win back the House. Well, with that, you're not going to win back the House
Exactly.
because what happens whenever we do? Are we just going to sit here and twiddle our thumbs, or are we actually going to get down to business? But it also depends on if we get people like you elected and
Yep.
Sarah Prue here in Kansas, who's running against Sharice
Yep.
Davids, which is an APAC shill. Um, I also think about Jeremy Whalen. I also think
Yep.
about Kyle Bloomquist. I think about Oliver Larkin knocking out Jared Moskowitz, another APAC
Yep.
shill.
Yep.
Ashley Bell in North Carolina. Aaron Petrie right there in Kentucky, right
Yep.
in Congressional District 6.
Oh
It
yes.
also looks like Liban Mohammed, which is in Utah.
Yep.
We need these people representing us. Oh, and Mike Crowley, who I just interviewed this
Yep.
morning, that's running in Tennessee. All of these people you're in groups with,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason I know about them is because of those groups, because they were recommended. You were
Yep.
recommended, even though I already knew who you were, and I have since your very first campaign. But last thing,
And well, and I do also want to say this too. Uh, yes, we need to impeach Donald Trump.
we also need to prosecute.
Exactly that. But we need to make sure that these Senate candidates, we have as many Senate candidates elected that will put teeth behind that impeachment. We impeached him last time he was in office, and it didn't do anything because the Senate just kind of sat on their hands and did nothing. So we
Mm-hmm.
need to make sure that we're flipping these seats to get as many Democrats elected. I know we have a Senate election here in Kentucky. Charles Booker and Pamela Stevenson, those are my top two choices in this seat. We need to elect one of them, and we need to make sure that their voice is up there so we can convict the president.
Can I let you in on a secret? I guess it's not
Yes.
really a secret, but Pam Stevenson's coming on the podcast.
I love she okay. She endorsed my campaign. I love
Yes,
her
she
to
did.
death.
Yes,
She is oh,
yes.
she is the sweetest person. She gives the best hugs.
She seems like a legitimate person, and she's not taking APAC money. I saw
Exact
her
yep.
post about it. She refuses. And I'm like, this woman is a fucking legend, y'all. And she
Yes.
is. But she will be coming on the
Yes.
podcast later in May. I
Get
did reach out
make
to
sure to let
Charles.
her know I said hi.
Oh, absolutely. I did reach out to Charles Booker's team as well because I'm interviewing people that are just in like the same district too. You're the only one
Mhm.
in your district that I'm interviewing. Um, not because there's not well, I don't know about the other candidates that are also running for the Democratic nomination. I don't know. I don't know anything about them, but I saw that you were running again. I was like, that's an instant.
Thank you.
But it's just, Kansas reached headlines very recently, and this is the last thing, and then I'll let you go and you can have your evening back. But I know this has been a really good conversation. I needed
It
this.
has. Yes, same.
I needed to let it out. We need to do this more often. You need to come back on the podcast.
Oh, of course.
Um but essentially Kansas broke headlines and not for a good reason.
No.
Kansas became the first state, and I've talked about it a couple times on this podcast because my partner is transgender and I'm queer and non-binary myself. And thinking about the state of LGBTQ rights, I mean, we saw this potentially disastrous decision come down from the Supreme Court,
Yep.
with conversion therapy. right?
Yep.
But Kansas broke headlines by becoming the first state to essentially invalidate gender identity that aligns with somebody's identity on their driver's license. Okay.
Oh my
It
gosh.
also impacts birth certificates, and I could send you an article about this if you want to read more about it. Um, it was deeply fucked up beyond belief, first of all,
That's
because
putting it nicely.
I'm gonna put it this way. I don't give a single fuck who or what somebody identifies as long as they can drive. I don't care if they are
Right.
transgender. I don't care if they're brown. I don't care if they're black. I don't care if they're gay, straight, transgender. I don't care. Just fucking drive. I don't
Use your
care.
turn signal. Like,
Use your damn turn signal and not
yes.
whenever, like, let me know in advance. Do not get on your damn turn and then you flip it on and then you
Yep.
want to turn around and flip me off because I almost clipped your car. It's like, dude, you didn't fucking notify me and
Yes.
tell me that you were turning. Anyway, Kansas drivers are fucking terrible, but that's beside the point. The point is, this is nothing more than a blatant attack on already an ostracized and marginalized community that I am proud to be a part of, that you are a part of, that
Yes.
millions of us. I mean, yes, like it's still 2%, but that's still 2% of the population that are still human beings. How
Exactly.
many times have we seen a drag queen harm somebody? I mean, yes, there's like Sherry Pie, horrible example,
Yeah.
but there's Sherry Pie. There are ones like Sherry Pie, but majority of people, I feel safer being around a group of drag queens than I ever would be
Amen.
a group of priests.
Yep.
And I say
Exactly.
that as a survivor of conversion therapy for 2.5 years. I say that because a pastor is the one that attached electrodes to different parts of my body and told me my attraction
Oh my gosh.
was a sin.
See, so here in Kentucky, especially my county, we've had a lot of uh, fights with getting a fairness ordinance, and
Mm-hmm.
banning conversion therapy is one
Mm-hmm.
of them. And our mayor in Bowling Green, I used to work with him. His name's Todd Alcott. I used to work with him at my school. When he first, in his first term, I was talking to him about it, and he said, well, Dakota, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. I was like, Todd, when I
It
was in
does.
school, our pastor at our church tried to convince my father to send me to one, and my grandmother stepped in and said, "Over my dead body." And I was like, "It happens. It's still happening." And his response was, "Well, I have a gay friend, and they didn't go to conversion therapy."
Congratulations.
What? W That's your excuse? And it's happening. And so we have people like that with those blinders on that don't see
You
this
know what,
happening.
William?
It's insane to me.
You know what, William? I'm going to stop you right there because you want to know what that is. That's called tokenizing, first of all.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like saying, oh, I have a black friend. I'm not
Yep,
racist.
exactly. Exactly.
Oh, I have a trans friend. I'm not transphobic. I have a gay cousin. I'm not homophobic.
Yep.
Okay, we need to stop this tokenizing and identity
Yep,
bullshit because
exactly.
it goes beyond that.
Exactly.
Because anybody
And
can sit here and say, "Oh, I support a community." Well,
yep,
you got to support the entire community and recognize the history of that.
exactly.
Because even people within the LGBTQ plus community still shit on trans people, not really realizing that their Pride Festival started as a riot
Yep.
against police brutality
Yep.
by a black transgender woman in New York
Yep.
City. She threw the fucking brick
Yep.
because
Yep.
she was tired of seeing black and brown LGBTQ community members being brutalized by police during the illegal raids. The Stonewall
Yep.
Inn is not just a Stonewall Inn, it's not just a bar. There's a deep history behind it. Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia
Yep.
Rivera, and then it even goes beyond that. It goes even further back. You had Harvey Milk. There's so many others that come before Marsha P. Johnson, but
Mhm.
that was the modern Stonewall riot and the Stonewall movement that people don't even realize. And safe
And
spaces
yep.
are not safe spaces anymore. We saw what happened
No.
with Pulse nightclub. We're coming up on the anniversary of it. And
That that actually hit me really hard when that happened.
Yep.
because I was down in Florida
Oh,
about a week before it happened.
yeah. Yes.
And I was in the area and thought crossed through my mind, hey, let's go to a nightclub. And that was one that popped in my mind. And just the thought of being, I was a week away from it. If I had stayed at a week, I would have been there.
Mhm.
I would have been there.
I I'll end with this. People deserve dignity.
Hmm.
People deserve respect,
Exactly.
regardless of who or what you identify as. You have a space in my movement on this podcast because I will fight until I don't have to fight anymore. And I want people to know that you are never alone. Feel free to
Exactly.
reach out anytime to me, to William. I'm sure William,
Yes.
I'm kind of volunteering you here,
Yes.
sorry, but people that are listening, just know that you have a life worth living. Change
Exactly.
is happening, and you should be here to see it. I say this as somebody who has struggled with mental health. I say this as somebody who is on the autism spectrum, who is disabled, who has a disabled mother, who has a transgender partner, who's a survivor of sexual assault, domestic violence, and gun violence. I say this because I genuinely care about people, which is why I'm doing this podcast,
Yep.
which is why I'm interviewing progressive candidates running across the country because our voices matter. No matter how
Yes.
big or how small the election is, every single election matters. William,
Exactly.
thank you, first of
And
all.
can I
Oh,
add something to that real
yes,
quick?
please do.
I want to add exactly what you said. This world is better without you or with you. It would be worse without you. And if you're in an area that you feel like you aren't being heard, that you feel alone, like I said earlier, reach out to me. Yes, I'm in Kentucky. Yes, I'm running for Kentucky's second congressional district. But if you're in another state and you don't have a voice fighting for you, I'm going to be that voice fighting for you. Reach out to me. Even if it's just to say, I want to vent for a second, reach out to me, please. Because we would much rather you have a place, a safe space to be than to not be here.
This podcast episode took a very deep turn and I'm loving it because it shows the complexity of why you're also running because these are not just narrow issues. These are not
Yeah.
for the narrow minded. These are the complex issues in which communities across the country are facing and across the globe. We see genocide, we
Hmm.
see armed conflict. I grew up during 9/11. I grew up during, Afghanistan, Iraq, and now we're seeing it with Iran. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot going on. And I know we didn't dive into the genocide, but we need to call it exactly what it is.
Oh,
Israel
yeah.
is
Genocide.
complacent,
Yep.
and the United States is arming and abetting a genocide.
Yep.
But because your
100%.
our tax dollars that they're cutting from Medicaid is going directly to arm and bomb children in Iran and in Israel and in Gaza.
Hmm.
It's so devastating to see the armed conflict continue going. But we'll dive into that later on in a different episode. But how can people contribute to your campaign? First of all, because grassroots, you need money
Yep.
to run for office.
Yes.
Even though you're doing good, there's still a lot more. It's very expensive to run for office. But how can people contribute to your campaign and uplift the work that you are doing?
So the easiest way is to go to my website, williamcompton.com. Really easy to remember. If you can donate, there's a donate button. You click on it, it takes you to my Act Blue. If you don't feel like using Act Blue, it'll have an address, a PO box that you can send a check to as well. If you don't have enough money to donate, that's okay. I understand times are hard with this administration and the rising prices, and you still want to help out though. We have weekly phone banks that this campaign is doing, reaching voters across this district. We're going to have more put into place. If you don't want to call someone and you want to text someone, reach out, hit that contact button on the website and say, hey, I would love to text voters in your district. reach out. Or if you want a postcard, I would love to postcard. Anything to help spread our message. And it can be all found on that website.
Absolutely. William, thank you so much for, again, I keep calling you William. Do you go by Will or William? I keep,
Um, William. Sometimes I go by my middle name, Dakota. There's a story behind that. Uh, just going by my middle name. Sometimes I'm called that damn communist, and but William's fine.
okay. I guess that would be one of the first questions I should have asked before we started recording this. But, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I
Thank you
greatly
for having
appreciate you. I
me.
appreciate your voice,
Thank you.
and good luck in your primary. And I look
Thank you
forward
so
to
much.
obviously continuing to uplift you. And I will let the courage candidates know that they need to be following you because, God, there's so many progressive voices running, and I'm so
Hmm.
excited. But again, thank you. I greatly appreciate you, and have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.